in order to have like a pretty effective understanding is to just create.
What's poppin'? Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at MaxPodcasting, and you can reach me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 129er, and today's guest is the one and only Jasmine Starr. Jasmine is the world-renowned business strategist and photographer who dropped out of law school and then became a full-time creative entrepreneur. When she dropped out, she left behind her full-ride scholarship to law school and went to be by her mother's side, who had just been diagnosed with brain cancer. Jasmine is known around the world and has been featured in Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc., and many more outlets. She's also the founder of Social Curator and, of course, rocks it on her podcast, The Jasmine Starr Show. In this episode, we talked about how to approach social media as an entrepreneur and what you can do to stay consistent and creative, how Jasmine stays creative and inspired herself, and some unusual and quirky things about her personality outside of the business world. It is a star-studded episode. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with the literal star of social media and entrepreneurship, Jasmine Starr, the one and only. Jasmine, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Of course. This has been something I've been looking forward to for a long time and just always loved your stuff. So really excited to get into your story and tips today. Before we get into that ballpark, I'd love to start with a camera. And I think for many people, a camera is something that's cool, but maybe you don't think too much about. But for you, came at a point in your life where your life was really, really changing. Can you take us through what your first camera meant to you?
When I look back at it, at the time, it felt like a risk. It felt like an adventure. But when I look back at it, I look at the camera as a passport that helped me transcend economic struggles, ethnic, geographic, anything that was a barrier in my life. The camera allowed me to transcend that, and it opened doors that would have never been open to me before.
Did you know at the time how that would truly set you on a path of getting into the world of, yes, I am going to use this camera. I'm going to start taking pictures, and photography is going to become not only a thing that I experiment with, but something that is going to define and kind of start the course of my career?
No, not at all. No, I mean, I think that everybody has aspirations of some sort, but I mean, I think at the time the equivalent would have been me holding a golf club or a basketball and then dreaming that I would be able to be in the WNBA. That was never on the top of my mind. I did wonder, like, what was the longevity of this? But for me, it was a creative expression. It was a way to take a risk on finding passion and purpose. So yeah, I wouldn't have put that pressure on it from the beginning.
What is it about capturing these moments through pictures and photography that you love so much and enough to actually start kind of your business career out of?
For me, it was a photo is a story. And if you have the ability to write a story without words, it was like a pretty powerful place to be. When I picked up my camera initially, this was far before like the major advent of multiple social media platforms. And so social media was like gasoline on top of a fire. It empowered you to share your work at scale. You were no longer beholden to an editor or a museum or an art show in college. It's like you had the ability to put it out and then the market was able to see it from a million different places, from a million different times, from a million different people. And I think that that was a thing that helped really grow like a passion and turn it into something that was profitable as well as purposeful.
And all the P's with alliteration there. That was perfect.
You know, I try.
Perfect phrase there. Yeah, phenomenal. And it really shows in your work. And as you got more into it, when did you realize things started clicking from the business standpoint of your photography business? Like when did you feel you started to gain traction in that world?
I started my business in 2007 and I started by way of a blog. I didn't have money for a website. I didn't have money for business cards. And so I just took to the interwebs and started writing my journey. For me, I just think that that was probably the inception of like creating content, putting it out there. And then as far as things actually clicking, I think people always ask about an inflection point. And I wish that there was just one thing I could put my finger on. I wish there was 10 things I could put my finger on, but it was such a slow amoeba like process that I could just look back and say that was the process, not one particular pinnacle of a moment that transformed or transfixed my attention.
I have to give you a ton of credit for having the first use of amoeba like I've ever heard in any conversation. Let's get to growing your social platforms and seeing business results from it, specifically as an entrepreneur. At the time of this recording, I'm someone who has always been interested in entrepreneurship. I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs for the show, studied entrepreneurship. But at the time of this recording, in my first few months of actually running my own business, and one of the biggest things that has jumped out to me was, oh my God, there's a huge shift in how important time is and how you decide how to use your time. And one of the biggest things in that space is social media, because you want to make sure you're not spending too much time kind of unnecessarily on social media. You want to be more intentional with it, especially with your business in mind. As an entrepreneur, how would you characterize the significance and opportunity that's out there if you do commit real time to your social media platforms, regardless of what platform it is?
Yeah, definitely it's indiscriminate of platform, but truly it's the opportunity to understand that the internet has been democratized. Like there was a time where the only time that you can market your business was by way of paying money, by way of paying money on television, on radio, on newspapers, on magazines, at trade shows, local mailers, and that was it. And you had to have money. And so it was like the chicken and egg conundrum is like, what do I do first? And how do I make money if I have to spend money? And then all of a sudden, social media became a vehicle and a mechanism to get your content out free of charge. It was like the internet just printed money and put it in your pocket and then said, here's a printing press, go out and make your own magazine. And yet people look at that and say, it's too hard. Nobody will read it. I don't have time. To which I respond, no problem, to each their own. But I'm out here trying to print as many magazines as dang possible because it's free.
It is free, and free is good, and endless magazines are good. What is it that got you interested in kind of cashing in on that freeness, if that makes any sense, in the first place? When did you realize that social media is a fantastic opportunity for you, both personally as well as your business?
More than anything, when I think about being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, it's like it should be tethered to and ingrained, and it should be buried in the idea that your business isn't there to serve people. It isn't there to get rich. It isn't there to drive a Bentley, and it isn't there to get you on your private jet. Your business is to serve people. And what I realized with social media specifically is that you had the ability to connect with people in real time and in real ways about how to improve their life, help them, empower them, educate them, entertain them. And it was just like hitting the lotto that you get to connect with so many people and show how you can transform their lives by way of your business and start real time conversations around that. That was the biggest value.
Let's say you're a business owner, whether you've started a business recently or you've had one for a while, but kind of just been spinning wheels on social media, but haven't really gained serious traction, or at least it doesn't feel like that. Where should you start? Like, what's kind of the key priorities as far as getting yourself out there on social media to the point that you establish that connection with, whether it be your clients or your prospects or just people that are in your business ballpark?
Well, first things first is to establish that consistency is the key metric. Is like consistency empowers you to look at data analytics, see how people are engaging with you, see how they're not engaging with you, to understand that consistency is the benchmark and the foundation on which your social media platforms will grow. You can't, one week post every day and then for the next 3 weeks you're randomly posting here and then, because people don't know how to engage, they don't know how to act, they don't know how to expect. So once you determine that you are going to be consistent, because it is a volitional and a coherent decision that you have to make, then you go into step number 2, and that's to establish the terms of your consistency. I would never advocate for somebody to be posting 10 times a week on Instagram if that was not walking in integrity to who they are. But it could be, are you posting once a day? Are you posting 3 times a week? Whatever your metric of consistency is, stick to it so that your audience knows what to expect. And then lastly, it's for you to create content to use as a barometer of what they are interested in context to your business. So if you're selling yogurt, you're not going to be writing about running shoes on social media, but you're going to be like, how can I talk about content in relation to my yogurt that they are interested in? And the only way that you know how to answer or respond to those is by you putting out content and seeing their reaction.
So how do you know what quote unquote they are interested in?
They will tell you by engagement, likes, comments, shares, saves. And if you repurpose your content by way of your post into stories and then people are engaging or sending quick replies, or if you're putting polls and they're voting on the polls, if you're using a quiz and they're voting on your quizzes, that's all an indication to the algorithm that they're interested. If they look at your content and do not take a single action, it's indicating to the algorithm they don't want to see more of that content.
Can you take us through how you do that? Can you take us through how you look at your engagement? We could use Instagram for example, but after some recent posts and are able to determine what's actually resonating with people?
In order to have like a pretty effective understanding is to just create. So if you say I'm going to be consistent and you say I'm going to be posting on Instagram once a day, and I say, okay, then I would probably recommend waiting about 4 to 6 weeks without looking in, not being concerned, just create, because you start seeing trends, you start seeing patterns, you're able to connect. So the more creation that you put out there, the easier it's going to be to confirm your hypothesis. So for example, if you post once a day for 30 days and within those 30 days, you posted 3 photos of a selfie, and those happen to be the highest and most engaging post. If you weren't able to see the trend line between all 3 of them, you can then confidently say, I need to be showing my face more often on social media. A hypothesis: if you put out a picture of birds on a wire and then a sunset and then footsteps like out on the sand, and that engagement is the lowest, your audience is telling you that landscape photos, nature photos aren't really what they want to be seeing on your profile. So you look at this data, you look at the analytics, you create hypothesis. Do I think people want to see more of me? Then you test that, and I will either confirm or deny your hypothesis.
And it is so great. Like that's one of my favorite parts of social media is you do have the analytics. You have so much data there, or data, and I will never know how to pronounce that correctly for the rest of my life. But you can see pretty much real time insight on what you're putting out there compared to, the much more traditional forms of marketing or forms of content. What would you say, in addition to consistency, in addition to the analysis of engagement, what would you say are some other big pillars with your social media approach, regardless of platform, that is key to focus on as an entrepreneur?
Is to understand that you have to give the type of engagement that you want. Oftentimes, people aren't getting engagement because a lot of people on the internet don't know the account exists. So, the way that you actually get engagement on your account is by giving engagement on other accounts. So, I call this the 10x rule. What you want to do is whatever you want in your account. So, let's just say you want somebody to leave a comment on your post, then you should go and leave 10 comments on 10 different accounts on their posts. Let's say you want 10 likes on that photo, then you should be going and liking 100 different photos on Instagram. You must give the type of engagement that you want. This acts as like a highlighting of your account, but it also showcases you, like who you are as a business owner, and showcase that you care and that you are also there to create great content. If you are listening in at this time, you don't have people leaving comments and you don't have sent people sending direct messages, well, then I would like photos and leave comments however it came true to me. I never want to be one of those people who are like, well, have you liked your 997 posts today? Like, I would never advocate that. I would be like, go to a hashtag that you think your dream customer is using or surfing and experiencing. And then based on that, you've already pre-qualified your audience if they're using hashtags that you yourself and or your business service. So the conversations are siloed within that. So if you are liking and commenting, you could say something valuable. And if somebody discovers your content by way of that, then it's going to be a win-win.
And I think that's incredibly important to get back to, virtually everybody who reaches out to you.
More than anything, especially for small business owners, your business is a derivative of yourself and your team. And even if I am not the person responding to every email that I get, or even if when it comes to like podcast reviews, I really want people to reach out and leave podcast reviews, even if I can't personally reach out to them. But when you have the ability to respond to a comment or a direct message, it reminds the other person on the other end of that, on the receiving end, that you are paying attention, that you care about them, and that they matter. And that says so much because time is the most precious resource that any of us have. So the fact that you spend time in responding to somebody, it means something to them. And people inherently get that.
And there's something so special about somebody who maybe you never even met, remote. You might be across the country, across the world from them, knowing that they took the time to get back to you. There's just something so special about knowing that, like, there's that care, there's that connection there. And clearly it's been so instrumental in your growth and kind of the growth of your brand, just to use the word growth as much as possible. In the nature of helping out with Social Curator, you've created tools, you've created some real resources and help to so many out there who are on the social media struggle or positive grind, however you want to look at it. Where was the insight that led to the creation of Social Curator?
By creating content and by speaking to other entrepreneurs and business owners, the thing that we discovered is every time I'm like, hey, you could really market your business on social media, or you could grow, or you can have conversations, people would always come up with the same three pressure points when it came to their business on social media. Number one, I don't know what to say. Right. Like, I really don't know how to communicate, or I get writer's block, or I've never been great, or my grammar's not good, and I have typos. And then the second pressure point was it's so visual, like Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. It's like you always want to accompany it with like a visual component, like a photo or a video. And like people are like, I'm not a photographer, I'm not a videographer. So it's difficult for me to show up in that capacity. And then lastly, the third major pressure point that we heard from business owners was like social media platforms and basically digital marketing, period. It changes and iterates so quickly. I have a hard time keeping up and knowing what I should be doing, how, and when. And myself and my husband, who's my business partner, we kept on hearing this again and again and again for a few years. And so the question we had to ask ourselves is like, how do we bridge the gap between not knowing what to say, not having visual collateral, and really being on the cusp of marketing? And that's when we decided to create Social Curator, which would give people access to a digital gallery of imagery that would give access to people to have caption templates to learn how to talk about their business by filling in the blank, customizing and personalizing it. And then every single month, adding a new marketing plan to ensure that it's reflective of what is the current state of social media marketing.
And it's so cool that that came from real life social media insight, where like you were of the things you're actually seeing, and hey, let's come up with something that has a fix for it and provides value there. How would you advise the decision of creating separate accounts versus kind of keeping everything all together under your name?
Is when it becomes very hard to differentiate what that account is about. And when we started Social Curator, I mean, to be honest, we started the business and I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Like I just start off like on a wish and a whim. And then what happened over time was the more that I started creating content around Social Curator and for Social Curator, that the line became a little unsure. Like, is Jasmine start the business or is Social Curator the business? When we started getting those questions, it became very clear for us to start a separate account. And I'm so happy that we grew the Social Curator Instagram account to over 10,000 followers in less than 2 months using the exact step-by-step strategies that we teach on the inside of Social Curator. So it became a testament to what we're teaching people and how we're growing. And that was exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when you practice what you preach, it people just can't get enough of that. They internalize it. So that's so cool. It's worked out for Social Curator. What is the most common mistake that you see entrepreneurs and small business owners make in the social media space?
Lack of consistency. And I know it's the second time I repeated it on the podcast, but that's truly what I preach. And people can get sick of it, but that's the foundation. It's like a tenant to growing on social. And it's just to be absolutely positively committed to your version of consistency.
Yeah, and you're very consistent about it. Consistency. That is the name of the game in the podcasting world as well. If you want a consistent, high quality podcast for your business, for your brand, but you don't want all those hours behind the scenes taken away from you every single week, email me at max@maxpodcasting.com. Now, let's get some more into consistency. Maybe. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get to consistency. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get to inspiration and creativity. I want to start with your energy because I think you have some of the best energy, the best charisma. Like I think anybody that interacts with you is like ready to run through like a marathon of brick walls. I think there's just something so inspiring and positive about who you are and the wisdom, the tips you share. Besides coffee, where does that energy come from?
I mean, I know it sounds very Hallmark Christmas movie special.
We'll edit in some music.
Okay, good. Yes, make sure it's very weepy and dramatic. I definitely think it's when you know you're purposeful. Like I believe that people often teach the thing that they had to learn themselves. And for so long, I just beat myself up saying that I couldn't do the things that I wanted. Like I was too, I don't know, I was too behind, I was too poor, I was too brown, I was too female. I could have a litany of things of why it wouldn't have worked. And yet it did. And I think that my purpose is to empower people to believe that impossible things are actually possible for them, even if they're not the most qualified, the most talented, the richest, the prettiest, the smartest, the skinniest. It's like I truly believe that I get on stages or on podcasts and I have the ability to speak my truth. And when the truth resonates, it's not like I'm captivating. It's not like I'm energetic. It rouses something that's already in that person. There are some people who hear me talk and they can't stand me. It sounds like, kittens scratching a chalkboard. And yet some
Well,
people
I
hear it.
wasn't gonna say, but
I know, and you happen to be part of the latter group, but there are some that like identify with it and some that don't. And, that's going to be the case with every single person in every single situation. I choose to focus on the people who find me invigorating and inspiring so that they go out and take action. And that's where I'll put my time and energy.
and how do you kind of manage that yourself? Like, I'm sure there are some days, there are some weeks where you're like, oh my God, like I just don't feel like it today. Or like I don't have my A game today. I don't know what it is. How do you get yourself back in that mindset so you can not only hold yourself and your business to accountable for that, but also keep that energy and consistency viewable to your audience?
I focus on the one person I'm supposed to help today. That's just it. Because I feel like anything beyond that is speculative. But if somebody were to ask every day that you do your work, is there one person who found it helpful, valuable, inspiring, beneficial, educational, one of those things, I could say yes. And I think that when I get myself out of the way and create content for that one person, it just makes it easier and empowers me to like keep on going even when the days are long and tiring.
How do you get yourself to keep that focus on one person? It's very, 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 just repeat very 17,000 times, but very, very easy to fall into the trap of trying to have some broad appeal.
I don't think that broad appeal is a bad thing, but if your focus and your satisfaction is tethered to broad appeal, I think you're going to be wildly let down. I just know that I can't manage more than what I believe to be true. And what I believe to be true is that there's one person who's going to find a Facebook post or a YouTube video or a Pinterest pin that's going to be beneficial and helpful to them. That is true. And I believe that. Anything beyond that would be hard for me to believe or to speculate. So I just focus on the one, and then it transforms the way that I behave and the content that I produce.
And it's evident in your content. What do you do in your free time that helps you feel more creative, helps you kind of hit the refresh button?
I'm an avid reader, so I find myself being able to set out a little bit of time on the weekends to read and catch up in that way. I also like foreign films and independent movies. I think that that helps me see things differently. But oftentimes, like how I recharge or the things that I'm inspired by is by watching creatives do something pretty epic with very little money, equipment, or time. Like when I'm able to see like interesting time lapses, or I'm able to see like a random dance routine, if I'm able to see a chalk artist in Venice do something and have people walk over it and then splash water and it turns into a different piece of art. Like things like that stimulate my brain and make me see the world so brightly that inspiration oftentimes comes in unexpected ways. It's not something that I'm like, I am now going to go to my museum and walk away inspired. Oftentimes it's happening in unexpected ways.
Yeah, if only there was a museum solely focused for the purpose and inspiration that you could book exactly 30-minute meetings to.
They do have the Museum of Ice Cream in San Francisco, and you go in and it's like you're just on a sugar high. I wonder if like I created the inspiration museum. Like come in, watch a few things, eat some great food, listen to good music, watch a dance routine, and then have a business meeting. You'd probably come up with like a multi-million dollar job idea right there.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm filing the legal documents as we speak. That is really cool, especially with the ice cream is literally cool. And speaking of creatives doing things that are creative, let's get to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
I know it's the most creative thing you've ever experienced ever. That'll be $45. Wild Business Shout of the Week. This is where we talk about a creative marketing campaign approach that got your attention. And there's a guy named John Yushi, which
Yushay.
I was just was just about to say that I probably pronounced it wrong. Thank you for the confirmation. John Yushi. What does Mr. John do on social media that you're just in love with?
He is the marketing manager for Instagram. I met him by way of a conference and I started following his work. And I think it's pretty interesting because he has a lot of social commentary on what is actually working and what's vibing. He used to be at YouTube creating videos around marketing and what made social media marketing effective. And he's kind of continued his series on Instagram. And what he'll do is he'll just take what is working, like a specific marketing campaign, out on social media, and then he'll dissect it. And so he does this for campaigns that work and as well for campaigns that just like totally ate crap. And so I think it's very interesting to see his perspective from an insider at Instagram and then being able to draw parallels in how I, as a small business owner, can deploy against the things that he's been sharing.
It's cool that somebody, with such an important position in such an important company in the social media landscape is practicing what he preaches and is, delivering that content that is just so entertaining, but also valuable and insightful. What is your absolute favorite part about what he does that always seems to put a smile on your face?
It's pretty appealing that he knows just how to be himself. I think that that's so wildly underestimated and undervalued is that people think that they have to be somebody or they have to be something different than who they are. And this person kind of just walks out into the screen and he's okay with who he is. He's okay with the content that he puts out. And it feels like very experimental without attachment to people's opinion about it.
You have me in tears because that is the second use of wildly. And on the Wild Business Growth podcast, any mention of wild is like you win the prize at the end. So stay tuned. That's very
I'm wildly excited.
Yeah, 3. Wow, geez. This is wild. All right. As a perfect segue, let's get to the unusual. So pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. What is a weird talent that you have? Something that's maybe a party trick, something that really doesn't have much importance as far as your business, but it's pretty cool.
Okay, I don't know why. I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I can burp the alphabet. There you go. It is something that is so disgusting. I probably hid that.
Can you do it on command?
No, I cheat because I'll take like a carbonated drink. Like I'll take like club soda or sparkling water or something like that. It's terrible. I don't know why I even mentioned it. My mother, if she listens to this podcast, is going to cringe.
Sorry, Mrs. Jasmine's mom. Can you burp it backwards though? Because that's always, extra impressive.
No, not yet. Not yet.
All right, we'll teach you that off the record. But that's amazing. If I would have had a whole alphabet section here. What is a pet peeve that you have?
When people don't say thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
Oh, hey. No, saying thank you is one of it says a testament. It says a lot about who you are and expressing gratitude for small and big things. It means a lot to me.
Thank you again. No, I'm totally with you. Like it blows my mind when people don't say thank you. It's a head scratcher. And then what about quirks? What's something a little bit quirky about your personality that maybe your husband or family friends calls you out for? That's a little bit quirky, but it's who you are. You love it.
I leave the cabinets open. Like, I don't know what it is.
No.
I know.
You know what?
I know.
I got to go, Jasmine. It's been great, but
I know. I know.
On purpose?
It is so, I don't even know I do it. Like I every single morning I'm up before my daughter and my husband. So I'll start making her breakfast and every cabinet that could be open in my kitchen, it is opened. I will make the food. I won't even know that I didn't close it. I'm sitting and feeding the baby and my husband every single morning closes all of the cabinets. It's just this awful habit. I don't know why I do it. It's just natural. And then I don't even know that I do it.
This hits way too close to home because my girlfriend, Dana, she absolutely is the same way about cabinets. And I absolutely am the opposite, where
I can't function if the cabinet's open. So she will, I think most of the time unintentionally leave it open, like as you were saying, like don't even notice it. But there's sometimes every now and then that I think she's just, trying to get under my skin and waits for me to notice it. And if I don't notice it within a minute, there's nothing. I just have a breakdown. So that's incredible. Let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
I am.
All right, let's get wild. What is your favorite photograph that you've ever taken?
It actually happened in 2020, and it was a photograph of my daughter and my
Yes.
husband. Yeah, so we were blessed with a daughter in February. She was born January 22nd, and she was placed in our arms on February 2nd. So taking a photo of the two of them was probably one of my most favorite photos.
That's amazing. Congrats on all that. I sure to put a smile on your face. I'm sure you haven't stopped smiling since.
That is true.
Knew it. If you would have rewinded your life, if you're watching like the footage of your life, there was a time that a viewer watching the tape would have thought that you were going to fully go down the legal route and become a lawyer. What type of lawyer would you be if you had stuck the legal route?
I think at the time I was like, maybe I'll get into like entertainment law. I thought like maybe because it was like lucrative, but still without attachment to it. But I think overall, I probably would have got into contract law because I'm obsessed with Judge Judy and Judge Milian from the People's Court. And every episode is just contract law. And the fact that they didn't have a contract, but I actually like seeing how the law interprets a contract. It's really nerdy.
And shout out Judge Trudy from the Amanda Show as well. You talked about your favorite photograph ever, and that was obviously people that are very, very close to you. What about a place that you haven't been yet, but you would love to photograph?
I have been wanting to visit Japan for a very long time. I just think that either seeing like night city life or just experimenting and experiencing different foods and cultures, it's just been a place that I've been wanting to go, I think, for as long as I can remember.
In any particular city or landscape or something in Japan that you would just love to take a picture of?
Not necessarily. I have a feeling it's probably would be nightlife. I think like a really cool like
Mm.
neon photo. I think it would be a really cool dream to take a photo of my husband and daughter somewhere like late at night in Japan with the neon lights. I think it would be cool. A bowl of ramen, some steam coming out. I think it would be a cool place to visit.
I can picture it, pun intended. I can picture it as you depict it. Okay, this is a weird one, so bear with me. Let's say you were stuck in solitary confinement, like in prison. So we're not going to get into the backstory here, but you're in prison, solitary confinement, but you're totally okay. You're totally content because there's one song that's playing on repeat and it's your favorite song in the world. What is that song?
I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's called Oceans by Hillsong United.
It sounds familiar. Maybe when I was in prison.
And there you go. It probably brought you peace.
And then last one. Who is someone that you have been, wait for it, starstruck by? So whether that's somebody in person or podcast, virtually, somebody that you just got a little bit nervous to talk to or see.
Well, I didn't talk to her and I didn't see her, but I definitely had like nervous energy and butterflies. My husband surprised me. One of my favorite writers and speakers and podcasters is a woman by the name of Brené Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, she's incredible.
she's incredible. She's just like a walking unicorn. The world is better because she's in it. And I went to UCLA Law School on a full ride scholarship, and I ended up leaving because my mom had a relapse with brain cancer. And I'm so thankful for that experience at UCLA. But for so long, it held a weird energy for me. Like, I know that it was something I shouldn't have been doing or even there. And yet I felt like I couldn't go back on campus because it held memories of what I perceived as like a failure. Like it was something I stopped doing. And years ago, Brene rented Royce Hall at UCLA. And the minute that tickets went on sale, he was one of the first people to buy the tickets. And we sat on the bottom floor, a little bit close to the stage. And I remember listening to her conversation about strength and vulnerability and authenticity and owning who you are. And I thought to myself, what a gift. Like, what a gift to be able to rewrite my story at a place that I looked at as an edifice of a representation of my failure. And then to hear and learn from somebody who I respect. It was like a closure. It was a full circle moment. I had butterflies, walking in, and then I had butterflies walking out. So it was a really cool experience.
The in and out butterflies. Well, that's amazing. Brene Brown, obviously an icon as well. I'm sure she has butterflies hearing about the way you talk about seeing her and how much she means to you and so many as well. So that's an awesome example. Well, Jasmine, this has been consistent. It's been fantastic. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your tips. Where is the best place for people to connect with you, to connect with Social Curator as well?
You can find me on all social platforms at Jasmine Star and at my website, jasminestar.com, as well as socialcurator.com.
Perfect. And last thing here, final thoughts. The stage is yours. It could be a line, a quote. You could burp a certain alphabet, whatever you want. Send us off here.
One of my favorite quotes is something that someone told me my first year of business, and he said, "Jump and the net will appear." And I think that I've been successfully trying to jump without seeing the net and then always realizing that later it was always there.
Well, Jasmine, you have serious hops. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on the podcast, sharing all your amazing tips and stories. And as a reward for saying wild so often, you get to hear wild one more time.
Wild!
And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this, see, I did it again. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite app and tell a friend about the podcast. You can also find us on Good Pods. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at MaxPodcasting.com. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!